Hey there! Welcome to Hobie on YouTube. I recently purchased a collection of early American Scout knives, and I thought a good way to share those would be to start with these two really fun, unofficial Scout knives, and they are Buster Brown shoe knives. So what's a shoe company doing selling knives? Well, hold on, and I'll tell you. So these are Buster Brown shoe knives. And if you look at the shield, it says exactly that, Buster Brown shoes. And if you look at the tang stamp on the main blade, and if you didn't know any better, you would think this knife was made by the Brown Shoe Company, St. Louis. But it wasn't, and I'll tell you who made this knife in a little bit. But first, some background on Brown shoes. It's a very old company, started in 1878 by George Warren Brown in St. Louis, and it has grown to become one of the largest shoe concerns in the world. They operate under the name Caleres. They have over $1 billion in sales and employ thousands of people. You might know them best by their retail chain, Famous Footwear. So that's the Brown Shoe Company. What about Buster Brown? Well, Buster Brown started in 1902 as a comic strip about this weird, mischievous little kid and his dog Tige and his sister or girlfriend Mary Jane, I don't know which. But it became really popular, and they would sell the rights to different companies to market different products. There was a Buster Brown radio program in 1943. It went on to become a TV show in 1951. So in 1904, Brown Shoe Company kind of got on the Buster Brown bandwagon and bought the rights to the name and started a line of children's shoes. And this is where the knives come in, because they would sell or give away the knives with the shoes along with other products, as a promotion. They actually had a points reward, I think, kind of program where kids could earn points to get different things. And at one time, they even gave away a knife with a pair of shoes. Here's an old ad that shows a pair of boys' shoes with a sheath that actually holds the knife. And at first they actually included the knife with the shoes, but later you had to purchase that separately. By the way, I got that image and a lot of the information I'm using in this video from a really excellent article in the May 2007 issue of Knife World magazine by Dennis Ellingson. Apparently Mr. Ellingson has a great collection of Scout knives. He's written about different aspects of them extensively, and he's kind of my go-to expert in the subject. Anyway, from that article I learned that Buster Brown shoes offered 3 different types of knives. The 4-bladed utility or Scout knife that you see here, and they were made by 3 different knife companies, Schrade, Utica, and Imperial. But they also offered a fixed blade sheath knife from Marbles and a 2-blade easy open jack where the secondary blade was a screwdriver cap lifter. And they were made by a variety of companies. And that was actually the knife that you got with the shoes I just showed you. Those different knives had 4 different types of shields. You can find Buster Brown shoes like you see here. You can find shields that say Buster Brown Health Shoes or just Brown Shoe Company. And then finally a 2-line that says Buster Brown Shoes, and then second line Brown Built, B-I-L-T shoes. So as I mentioned, these Buster Brown brand knives were made, the utility knives were made by 3 different companies, either Schrade, Utica, or Imperial. And this knife was made by Utica, and I'll show you how I know that as we go through it. But first, to look at the outside, you've got these beautiful dark brown jig bone handles. There's the nickel silver badge. It's just kind of a oval shape, pointed oval. And brass pins, nickel silver lined bolsters, a removable bail. I don't believe this one's original because I don't believe the shape is quite right, and the gauge of the wire doesn't seem heavy enough to me. But it has brass liners and a brass separator there. and then carbon springs and tools. And again, let's start with the main blade. It does have a half stop. It's a spear point with a long nail pull, swedged. And the Brown Shoe Company St. Louis is the only marking on the entire knife. And then here is the screwdriver cap lifter. Oddly, this is the only tool on the knife that doesn't have a half stop. And I think it just seems kind of smallish, but it's original. Nothing too special about that, or too different. Here's one way I can tell it's a Utica knife, and that's by the can opener. Can openers and punches often will give you tells as to who made the knife. This was used a lot by Utica, this style of can opener called a saddleback or half moon can opener. Think of Utica Cutmaster Girl Scout knives, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It also has a half stop. And then finally the punch. There's a little cutout here to get your fingernail under a lip. It's got a half stop too, really good spring action. But this style of awl, this groove and nail nick in the back here, this is referred to as a lightning strike or lightning bolt awl. And that's very typical of Utica. Now, according to Mr. Ellingson's article, these Buster Brown knives were made and sold from the late 1920s to early 1930s. But with a can opener like this, my knife would date from the 1930s. And then let's just take a look at the other one. It's pretty similar, but there's some differences. Obviously, the die, the toning of the bone handles is different, but the badge is the same. Lined nickel silver bolsters. This one has an attached bail. Also, I don't believe that's original. Typically, attached bails go right through the center, whereas a removable bail will be in a hole right down here below the pivot. And so I think probably the removable bail was missing, and someone came and attached a bail here. I might change that back out to an appropriate removable bail just to make the knife more original. But yeah, brass liners, and I believe that's a brass separator, although it's kind of hard to tell here under the camera. Brass pins, all carbon steel. This is interesting. On the other knife, there was no half stop on the screwdriver cap lifter, but there is on this knife. So that would probably give it half stops on all the tools. Same style can opener. Yeah. Yeah, half stop on the blade. Same tang stamp. No other markings. And then finally the punch. Half stop. Same style of punch. I just think these are really interesting old knives. I mean, they're full of history. They got a lot of nostalgia. They remind me a little bit of some other promotional branded knives from that era, like Curtis candies or Baby Ruth candy bars, maybe a little later on Bazooka Joe bubblegum. But these Buster Brown shoe knives are built every bit as good as an adult knife or a knife that you would market to an adult. It's a lot like the Remington Scout knives. They didn't change their product just because they were selling it to boys. So these are high quality knives. These are a couple of really good specimens. I'll probably hold on to one and sell the other because I really don't need two, and they are so very similar. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, keep your eyes on my All About Pocket Knives shop, because as I go through this collection and inspect the knives, I'll probably be selling some that are redundant to knives that are in there or knives that I already have. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.
Does your shoe have a boy inside? What a funny place for a boy to hide.
Does your shoe have a dog there too?
A boy and a dog and a foot in his shoe. Well, the boy is Buster Brown,
And the dog is Tige, his friend.
and they're really just a picture, but it's fun to play pretend. So if boys and girls like you want some fun, get the shoe with a picture of the boy and the dog inside, so you can put your foot into Buster Brown shoes.